And she's like looking at me, and I go, I need you to check yourself and see if you're leaking any coolant. And she's like, what do you mean? I go, are you bleeding? She's like, why would I be bleeding? Because your machine gun just blew up, ma'am. Hello everybody, Terrence Popp here with another episode live from the Lair. Alright, so we're like in 2008 into 2007. You know, we were standing up a unit basically from scratch, and it was fucking insane. The way it works, if a unit is shut down and moved across the country, especially the 414, which was an active CA unit in Utica, New York, everyone needs to, they're unassigned, and that's just the way it is. Unless they sign a waiver that they're willing to drive 500 fucking miles to drill. So we basically got nobody in the beginning. That's not necessarily true. There was a bunch of guys that were actually deployed in Iraq in 07, 08 that deployed before the unit actually shut down and moved to Detroit. And so when it got moved over to us, there was some kind of snafu, and these soldiers, when they came back from Iraq, even though they went back to Utica, they were still on the books of the 414, which caused all kinds of fucking problems. I'll get to that down the road. Now, Donahue basically was assigned to the 414 in 07. So towards the end of 08, you know, he knew that he was coming up short and he was going to get PCS somewhere else. So we were trying to take steps to set all the SOPs in place so things would continue to move at a regular clip. Now, he and I were attached at the hip for pretty much all of 07 and 08. We traveled all over the place, between Maryland and New York, Chicago. I believe we went down to Bragg a couple times, and there's one other place, I think Florida, I'm not sure. I mean, there's just an insane amount of administrative schools you gotta go to, and, you know, other schools that are, you know, necessary to have, you know, when you are working in the CA world. I didn't really see a lot of, you know, benefit to most of the shit that I did there. Some of it was good, but a whole hell of a lot was just a waste of fucking time. So the first AT that we actually ran, which AT stands for annual training, and then you're in the reserves, you do that in the summertime. I got earmarked to go to Fort Indiantown Gap and run a bunch of machine gun ranges and heavy ranges for the entire CA brigade. The whole brigade. I mean, that was like 3 battalions of guys. So I ran the 50 caliber range a couple times, the 240, which is the 30 caliber machine 30 caliber machine gun range. I used to call it the 60 range. I still do, out of habit. Ran a SAW range, ran a Mark 19 range, and a 203, so we were some shooting fools. Now, you know, when I was doing the FAM fire, which is familiarization fire with the 50 cal, we started right around 9 in the morning. I had 3 guns lined up with 2 more to be swapped out when they would heat up and stuff. And I would just walk people up, and they would get a 100-round belt, and they would, you know, familiarize themselves with the fucking 50 cal. And we did that for all of the non-essentials and all of the individuals who are not assigned as gunners for the 50 cal, because it's important that everyone get familiarized on how to use the weapon, because it could save your life. Now, that was the first day. Now, towards the end of the first day, the guns were getting old. I mean, they were old and they were getting tired, and they were, we were swapping out barrels and what have you. But we had it was an '06 female '06 colonel. Her people at all pretty much fam fired, and it was her and her headquarters staff. And they came up to one of the weapons, and she sat down behind it and followed all the instructions, was doing what she was supposed to do, and boom, one of the fucking rounds, whatever happened, it detonated a little short and actually, blew the front or the barrel out of the weapon, and, threw a bunch of fucking shit out the front. And I just basically said to ceasefire. I said, ma'am, just stand up. And she's like looking at me. I go, I need you to check yourself and see if you're leaking any coolant. And she's like, what do you mean? I go, are you bleeding? She's like, why would I be bleeding? Because your machine gun just blew up, ma'am. And then she's like, oh yeah. And just like goes into this fucking panic mode, fucking crybaby bullshit. And, I had really never dealt with female soldiers before, so I didn't really handle this the best. And I was just like, ma'am, could you please go back to the bleachers? And then she's like, look, the weapon blew up. I'm hurt. Am I hurt? And I'm like, ma'am, can you go back to the bleachers, please? We'll have you looked over by a medic, and that'll be that. So she goes back there. The medic comes, checks her out, not a scratch on her. But she was fucking lividly freaked out over the fact that the machine gun had blown up on the firing line. And, I had an armorer out for these weapons, I think 3 times throughout the day, because we were having some problems. And, what are you going to do? Shit happens. So they take the weapon off the fucking line. It goes back to the rear. And then we have a check fire, ceasefire. The post commander stops everything because I didn't know this at the time, but Fort Indian Town Gap is run by a bunch of tightwads, crybabies, sissy pantses, and they were freaking out because the shit happened on their range. So I mean, the last person to touch that weapon was their armor. So I knew where this was going. It was going to this huge pissing match between our unit and their fucking post, and who was going to take responsibility for the machine gun that blew up. So we're in there with the post commander, the XO, our commander, everyone that was on the range. The armorers are in there. Everyone's fucking pointing fingers, pissing in bowls. I mean, it's about to get fucking turbo fucking stupid in there. So I walk up to the 50 cal receiver and I look at it and I'm like, this fucking receiver was made in 1965. This is half a century fucking old. Shit doesn't last forever. Obviously, it came out of tolerance, and that's just the way it is. Apparently, I'm a Special Forces weapons sergeant, so they kind of took me at my word, and they're like, oh yeah, well, that must have been what happened. This, the machine gun's just so old. Yeah, okay. I'm like, not a problem. So I turned it from a 10 down to like a 2, and then the paperwork went from like, this thick to, just a couple statements and what happened. And, so we basically took the weapon apart, stripped it down, and when we turned it back in, we had tagged the receivers, out of tolerance. There was a crack in it, so it was fucking done anyway. But that was my first taste of how fucked up civil affairs and K-POC is. So, and that was insane. And in 07, 08, the civil affairs at K-POC fell under SOCOM, so we had like a shit ton of money. We had spec ops fucking money to spend. And, and that's exactly what we did. We were so short on fucking equipment when we moved over to Detroit that, we got a couple new supply guys and they went to fucking town ordering stuff that we needed to be, mission ready, mission capable. All right, let me see what we got here in my notes. Good news is, gentlemen, is I found a lot of my fucking books here from when I was at the 414. I can probably reassemble what the fuck happened there. But, again, it was a reserve unit, so it's not like it was doing fucking crazy shit every day. Most of the time, I'd walk into work about 8:30 in the morning. Be at my desk like 8:45, 9 o'clock. And I would do fucking reports. Basically bub slides, which is battle update fucking slides, which were done every, I think we had to have them done every Thursday up to battalion for review. And then we had command and staff slides, which were done a week before drill. And those, you had to go through everything in the fucking UMR, any shortcomings you had to explain. And in the reserves, we always had oodles of people who couldn't pass PT. We had people that were, medically on the verge of being disqualified or undeployable because they were not up to speed on their medical and dental. They hadn't had their physical or their dental wasn't done. And it was like herding cats. It was fucking insane. That's all I did was call people on the phone and bitch at them about shit that they weren't doing. And I wasn't nice about it. I remember I call people, I'd call them at fucking work. I remember I called this guy named Lair, staff sergeant, and he worked up at Home Depot. And I remember I called his work and I had him ask for over the intercom at the store. And I remember I called him because I needed an NCO for like 2 weeks, and he hated working at Home Depot. So I remember I had him on the phone and I'm like, hey man, I'm like, Leclerc. Yeah, I need a guy for 2 weeks. You up for it? And he's like, roger that. I'm like, okay, I'm going to fax over your orders and I'll see you here tomorrow. I faxed over the orders to his fucking work, and they were really good about handling fucking military stuff, and that was it. I mean, he was a good dude. He was one of the NCOs that just showed up out of nowhere and turned out to be really squared the fuck away. Good dude. I have nothing bad to say about him, other than he married a woman in the unit who sucked his soul and probably took 10 years off his life, and he promptly divorced her, but not before she fucked him over. So, I'm not going to say that cunt's name, because I hope she fucking evaporates into nothing. Okay, I also noticed that, I think I was the only Special Forces guy in K-Pock at the time, and I was allowed to wear my Green Beret, and I had a memorandum from record signed by a 2-star general authorizing it, so I actually kept that in my wallet. But while everyone's wearing that damn stupid black beret that was fucking given to them from the regiment back in the day, which I thought was a huge mistake, I would put on the Green Beret, and I would get fucked with mercilessly. And I really began to feel like there was a bunch of professional animosity, towards me because I was fucking triple tabbed and they weren't. But hey, too bad fucking for you. And it started getting me in some fucking hot water, but I kept the fucking memorandum in my wallet, so when people gave me shit, I'd pull it out, hand it to them, and be like, hey, you got a problem, take it up with a 2-star. Other than that, just leave me alone. I worked in the S2 position for 07, 08, and part of 09. Now, the S2 was the guy who does all the security clearances for all the soldiers. I would do all the courier cards. I handled the skiff and all of the OBSEC procedures. And, I had to do all the security inspections and deal with the alarm schedule and tests and all of the happy horse shit, which I mean, once you do it for a while, it's just like anything else. It's just a bunch of procedures, so it's not really that big of a deal. I did manage to have one of the highest clearance rates in KPOC for those 2 years, even though, technically we weren't authorized to full-time S2 position yet, but I was doing the job anyway. Now, I was on long tour orders in 07 and part of 08. I got picked up towards the end of 08, beginning of 09 for an AGR position, which was a 38 Bravo civil affairs position, which basically I was a training NCO for 2 companies. I'd already been the /S2 training NCO, first sergeant, everything for 2 companies as it is. But now I was officially the training ops NCO. So that was cool. And I became in charge of making sure everyone passed PT, qualified on their weapon, make sure they have their physicals done, get their dental squared away, manage all the drug test bullshit, longevity training, or master resiliency. That's it, resiliency training. That's something to combat all the fucking suicides that take place in the military. Now, in the beginning of 09, one of the biggest challenges of my military career showed up. It was a female lieutenant colonel. Last name, I'm not going to say the whole thing, Dina. She was Hispanic, kind of long, dark hair, and she probably looked fairly attractive in her younger years, but she had long since smashed into the wall. Now, up until this point, I had seen a lot of incompetent officers over my time in the service. And I've seen a lot of arrogant officers. And I've seen a few vindictive officers. But not until this fucking cunt showed up did I see all 3 of those qualities in one fucking person. I just couldn't fucking believe it. Now, I've never been the spit and polish kind of ass kiss and dick sucking kind of guy. It's just not, I just don't do that. And I got called aside from the First Lieutenant D, and he said, "Hey, this new colonel coming in is no fucking joke. I've heard about her. She just fucking, destroys everyone around her and is a complete fucking bitch." So I'm like, fuck. Here we go. Because I had just got my first set of orders in the AGR. And to continue on, I mean, the first tour is 3 years. And after 3 years, you can, re-enlist either in-def or do 5 or 6 year enlistments and keep going until you're done. But to get out of the first one, you basically, got to get a recommendation when you sign your next re-enlistment, for it. So I knew when she showed up that it was going to be a showdown between her and I, using administrative violence. And I did my best to lay low. I didn't want any trouble. I did my fucking job. My numbers were great. I had the highest PT, the highest rate of PT pass in the battalion. I had the best weapons qual in the battalion. I had the lowest undeployables for either dental or medical. I had a bunch of guys on my books that were from New York that I could not get rid of. I had like 6 or 8 left. I had slowly been getting them off by, basically, just saying, hey, if these soldiers came from New York, we're 500 miles away, take them off the books. And for whatever reason, these 6 or 8 guys that were on my books between the 2 companies, they just would not take them off. And I think it was just a numbers game that they refused to get rid of the soldiers because for every soldier that you have on the books, you get a certain amount of money, and they didn't want to get rid of them. And they're doing a huge disservice to these guys. I was between a rock and a hard place. And we're going to talk about that fucking cunt in detail down the road. And another thing I did, as soon as we got the alert order, because to send guys over to Iraq, then we had Afghanistan, and then later on North Africa. Civil Affairs at that time was the greatest casualty producing MOS in the United States Army. I'm a Special Forces weapons sergeant. I'm in charge of all these yahoos, and I take my job serious, and I didn't want to see people get killed or maimed from, not being ready. So behind the reserve center, we had a field, and it used to be an old Patriot missile fucking, complex. And there was a bunch of wood and, pallets and some Connexes. So I went out there one day and I built a 2-room shoot house. And it was designed to use airsoft weapons in there. I went and bought 4 airsoft M16s and Berettas, which with the ones you charge with the gas that actually look real, on my own fucking dime. And I ran these guys, every time we had a drill and we had downtime, 2 to 4 hours of just picking your ass time. I would take them out back and I would have them do. I'm sure they fucking hate my guts for it, but we would do casualty evacuation, first aid, transport casualty, a 9-line medevac, 9-line medevac, and air, helicopter medevac procedures. I would do, dynamic room entry with these guys. I would have them fight from the room out to a vehicle and exfil. I would have them actually hook up a tow strap and move a fucking vehicle while under fire from airsoft weaponry, of course. And I got them nailed down pretty good. And because I know that they're not going to be covering any of that shit in a MOB site, they would just brush over everything. And these guys would literally wind up being on CA teams responsible for security and not knowing what the fuck they're doing, unless they had, some grunts attached to them, which happened from time to time. But just in case they didn't get any grunt support, they could be able to sling fucking lead. And there was many times I would have people that could not fucking shoot to save their lives, and I would spend hours laying on the ground in the cold, rain, mud, whatever, next to these people and talk them through shooting the fucking weapon. Okay, and I got everyone. Sometimes it would take quite a while, but I got everyone to qualify with their weapon, which is fucking important. If you're a soldier and you can't fire your weapon or be able to use it effectively to engage targets, what the fuck are you doing? You're just asking for people to fucking die around you. Okay, so that's what I did there. Now, what I noticed about Lieutenant Colonel Dina, the cunt, she not only was she fucking straight up incompetent, she was just an evil, wretched bitch. Now, if you ever watched Harry Potter, and remember that one Harry Potter where that female from the Ministry takes charge of Hogwarts, and how she acted like just vicious, but she did it with like a smile, and she was nice on her face. She had a smile on her face, and she always acted somewhat nice. And all of the fucked up she did, she would say it's for your own good. That's exactly how this cunt was. It was fucking insane. All right, we're at 25 minutes, so we're going to go into the administrative violence of Dina. I'm not going to say her full fucking name. Fucking cunt that she is. And if I ever fucking see her in the real world, I don't care if she's a chick, I'm going to punch her like a fucking man. All right, I'll talk to you later.